Yeah. Thanks a lot, Dimitra, and once more, thanks for invitation. I'm always glad to do this kind of seminars. And yeah, I'm sorry that last time we had a bit technical issues, but still it's good to meet again and to explain a little bit about this model and specifics of it, and why it is, in my opinion, and not just in mine, quite a good model and could be applied also elsewhere. Yeah, just a couple of sentences about myself. I am originally coming from Serbia, but I'm living already almost 14 years in Potsdam in co-housing project projekthus Potsdam, which is one of the almost 200 members of the Mietshäuser Syndicate. I'm not officially I don't have any kind of function within the Mietshäuser Syndikat, but that doesn't prevent to share this model or talk about it and kind of start to try to spread the word about it. Yeah, so I will give you a short presentation of the model, and then please, if you have questions or comments, it would be also nice to go into discussion, and I will try to answer your questions if I can, and if not, then I will find some way or kind of links or whatever to give you to kind of try to answer on the questions which I cannot answer personally at this point. Okay. Can you just please go on the next first slide? Housing crisis is European-wide phenomenon actually, and it's kind of visible, and you can feel it in every European country. This wasn't really maybe such an obvious fact, let's say 10 years ago or 15 years ago, but now it's quite acute, I would say. And wherever you go, whatever country, you will face with the same problem. And some of those problems related to the housing crisis is rapid increase of the housing costs, decrease in the quality of living and housing, lack of affordable housing space, and ever more a lack of non-commercial social and cultural spaces. So practically availability and affordability in pressing social issues Europe-wide, I would say. I will go a little bit on more concrete on some numbers. How does it look in Germany and especially in Berlin area, just that you can get maybe better picture about it or better impression. Please, can you go on the next page? Yeah, this is the data about the housing market in Berlin in period of 2012 and between 2012 and 2022. I mean, I won't go really into numbers concretely, but this is like a presentation, kind of visualization of the development, average size of 30 square meters, 60 square meters, and 100 square meters. And this is the price per square meter, so-called cold rent, which means actually rent without heating and electricity costs. This is the way how you count the rent in Germany. And Germany is, this also has to be said, a apartment renting society, because more than half of the population doesn't own the apartment but rent them, and it's one of the highest percentages Europe-wide. So this is really like a relevant issue. And I mean, when you follow the kind of whatever column you take, you will see that numbers are increasing, or sometimes more, sometimes less. But actually, after COVID period, there was a really huge explosion of the costs, which is also related with a new wave of refugees and so on. So numbers are rising, and it becomes ever less affordable to rent apartment. Um, Not just in Berlin, everywhere, but I have numbers for Berlin. Next slide, please. These are the actual numbers. They don't really correspond perfectly with the previous ones, but this is what I found. This is the actually average price which you have to pay for the apartment. So count approximately 15,38 euros per square meter at, let's say, 3, 4, or 5 euros for the various costs which you get. So you come up almost until 20 euros per square meter. Apartment 60-meter size, that is already 1,200. This is quite a huge price for Berlin, because Berlin is one of the Berlin area is basically a pretty poor area compared with many other parts of Germany. That is also specific of the Germany, that capital city is poor, but and the other cities in the other part, kind of prices are higher and salaries are higher, and that is a kind of specifics of the German situation. So you can see it here also, like how does it like when you rent apartment in different parts of the town. And these are the, let's say, average three parts of the town: Kreuzberg, Neukölln, and Wilmersdorf. This is a web page web page of the syndicate. You can find more information there, but please go on the next slide. And because of this acute situation with housing, I think it's ever more relevant to talk about alternative models. Model of Mietshäuser Syndicate exists more than 30 years. And people who are into this topic, of course, talking about it since more than 30 years about it. But now situation, social kind of environment is such that this is more relevant than ever before. And this is where I will try to summarize and present you a model, so you can understand how this model could be one of possible answers to this housing crisis. Just to put this into a certain context, so you can understand it better. One of the most relevant experiences for the forming of the Mietshäuser Syndicate was experience of the squatting movement in West Germany in the 80s. Because in Germany, when you really think about it, housing crisis is permanently present since end of 19th century. So it's kind of different governments and different regimes were trying to tackle it with it in one or the other form, and they never really managed. Uh, so in each period of time, you had a certain responses or alternative solutions, and in the 80s, squatting was one of those solutions, which was quite massive. Uh, Simply squatting, you all know, it's attempt to bridge the gap of living and social space through occupation of the buildings. I'm not really a big fan of squatting. I always said if squatting works for you, that's fine. But squatting doesn't really work for me. And exactly this kind of experience was influencing because on or influencing on development of the Mietshäuser model, because squatting is a temporary solution with a very uncertain outcome. Uncertainty is a permanent condition, and one of the most common results of the squatting are failing projects and dissolution of the groups. And there are two reasons for that. Either it's external pressure, which means evictions and police violence, or internal dynamics. And it's quite often actually the both. Most of the people talks about evictions and violence, but rarely anybody talks about groups who are not capable to run actually the spaces, even when there is no such a big pressure on them. And that is the pretty well-known problem of the commons. Anyway, people who were back then in Germany in the 80s involved in squatting, they learned certain lessons from all these experiences. And the main lesson was to a necessity to design a model which could guarantee certainty, stability, long-term sustainability, and could be applied elsewhere. So actually, already in 1983, there was a first initiative in Freiburg in southwest Germany, which in the end of the 80s transformed into first kind of prototype of the co-housing project. And in 1992, after a couple of years, people who were starting with co-housing project in Freiburg decided to establish the network. Please go to the next slide. Main goals of the Mietshäuser Syndicate could be summarized as following. It's a creation of a collective ownership model within existing social economical framework, capitalism. It's creating and promoting of self-organization and direct democracy in the housing field. It is permanent withdrawal of the property from the real estate market. So in a way, creating long-term stability and safety for the co-housing projects so that they are not limited in time on 20, 30, 50 or 99 years, but with kind of no limit. Solidarity transfer. Under this is meant transfer of the know-how and funding from established co-housing projects to new projects, and in which way permanent expansion of the model would be enabled. And with to all this previously mentioned, actually, goal would be to have an impact on systemic changes in society, actually, by pushing or pursuing the idea that housing is not a commodity, that housing is a wider social issue. Please, next slide. This is something about the structure of the Mietshäuser Syndicate. This is I mean, in German language, but it's not so complicated to understand, and I will try to explain it. On the right side, you have a box which says Mietshäuser Syndikat Verein, which means Mietshäuser Syndicate Association. That is this association which gathers individuals, other associations, and informal groups, is a kind of starting point of the Mietshäuser Syndicate. This association establishes or have established a company Mietshäuser Syndikat GmbH, and it's the only property owner or shareholder of this company. GmbH is the limited liability company. This is the legal form, LLC. And this company has actually major role then in development of the co-housing projects, and plays a major role in Mietshäuser Syndicate model in general. Because you see on the left side actually how does it work and how does it spread. You have some kind of co-housing association, association of the people who want to establish a co-housing project. They join together with Mietshäuser Syndicate company. They create a new company together, and this company then acquires a property. And this is what I will explain you now in the more details on the next slide. How does it work? Please, next slide. This is the short explanation of the model, or let's say visual representation of it. As I said, when one association wants to establish co-housing project and joins the Mietshäuser Syndikat network, both of those stakeholders, housing association on one side and Mietshäuser Syndikat LLC, establish together joint LLC company with a nominal value of 25,000 euros. 25,000 euros is an amount of money which, according to the German legislation, you need to establish a LLC company. There are other legal forms, but they are not relevant actually for this model now. Property of this newly established company is shared between housing association and Mietshäuser Syndicate company in a relation 51% to 49% of the ownership. I guess this also could be done in a different percentage, but in this way, actually, they're almost equal. And it has also relevance in the symbolical level, but also at a financial level, because housing association as a majority shareholder needs to invest 12,600 euros into company, and Mietshäuser LLC as a minority shareholder invests 12,400 euros into this new company. So together they form a stock capital of 25,000. There is and then this jointly established company buys the property on which this housing association establish its housing project. This is how it works. Shortly explained. There is a share of the tasks and responsibilities between two shareholders. Housing association, as a majority shareholder, is responsible for management, self-organization. It runs the co-housing project, decides about the governance model and all these other things what belongs to it, and has, of course, veto right on the big decisions. And Mietshäuser Syndicate LLC, as a minority shareholder, doesn't have any kind of influence on self-organization, management, governance, and um, all these aspects of the running of one co-housing project, but has a veto right on the major decisions. And this is really the most important part of this model, because can we just see what is on the next screen? I cannot remember. Next slide. Okay, maybe we can just go back once more. Because actually, as I said, minority shareholder serves here as a safety mechanism, and kind of prevents any kind of negative development which could happen within the housing association which populates and runs one co-housing project. Because we all know, I mean, people always have good intentions. They are good-hearted when they start adventures like this. But with the time, perspectives changes and so on. So it quite often happens that good people with good intentions kind of make a very bad decisions, or privatize the projects, or decide to sell them and to gain some kind of personal, financial or other gain. And this model prevents all that. And this is one of the major benefits of the model. Development of the co-housing project doesn't depend from characteristics of the groups or characteristics of individuals who are populating co-housing projects and are members of the groups, but simply it's an attempt to establish a system which is totally independent, kind of to design a system which would prevent any kind of negative development, exclude it right away in the start, so that these kind of issues don't appear at all as a possibility or liability in the with the time. And this is one of the biggest benefits of this project, I would say, or of this model, I would say. Please, next slide. As I said, Syndicate supports a housing association with 49% of starting capital. For the LLC, which is in concrete case 12,400 euros, and supports it with its know-how. Practically, that is the only financial support which one co-housing project gets from the Mietshäuser Syndicate. But to be honest, you don't need really more than that. If you can start going with this, this is more than enough. What network provides its access to the diverse resources which you get again when you join the network. And that means know-how, counseling in regard to all possible issues and questions, from legal, juridical, organizational, group dynamics, governance, you name it, you can find the support there, as well as access to the people who are offering the loans, kind of low interest loans to various co-housing projects. So to be a part of this network, it really means it's really a huge benefit. But the main source of funding for establishment of one co-housing project are bank loans, of course. So this is the reason why inhabitants of housing projects within Mietshäuser Syndicate network pay their monthly rent. So all of us who live in co-housing projects, we are still paying our rents, and this rent goes to pay back the bank loan. So practically each of us is both owner of the property and tenant, so renter. That puts us in quite interesting kind of double role, which has lots of interesting effects. Monthly rent which we pay includes a solidarity fee, which is then transferred to the network. And with the time, how level of the loans which we took from the bank is decreasing, so solidarity fee increases. And this is actually what you can see here on this picture, which is here on the slide. So with the time, how this so-called capital cost and fees and expenses are dropping, solidarity fee is growing. And actually, with this money, which is then transferred to network, co-housing projects are enabling the network to support new co-housing projects and to spread this idea even more. This is also one of the mechanisms how you prevent, let's say, long-term silent privatization, because if your rent is actually, which you pay, more or less stable in the course of 10, 20, 30 years, after when you pay back the bank loans, actually would be, I guess, too much then even to lower your rent after that, and kind of to enjoy additional benefits from this model. Instead of this model predicts that all these kind of additional financial benefits will be transferred to the network itself, who can then transfer it to the other new co-housing projects, which in that way, I mean, you can expand this model. Please, next slide. Here I was just trying to kind of put some, let's say, commonly asked questions. This is the questions actually which I usually get when I talk with people directly about this model. So, for example, if one tenant, which is member of the co-housing project, decides to leave the co-housing project, what happens then? Well, answer is quite simple. Nothing happens because this model is not a shareholder model. It's not a typical cooperative model. So tenants are not shareholders of the association, and they don't take any shares with them. So if one person leaves, new person comes inside, and whoever is in one moment in the co-housing project, it's a member of the association and enjoys different kind of benefits which that brings with itself. What happens if the housing association decides to sell the house? Well, Mietshäuser Syndikat, as a minority shareholder, blocks the decision because it has a veto right on the major decision. So practically hostile takeover of co-housing projects is not possible. So it's not possible that one group within the co-housing project takes over a co-housing project, or that it takes it out of the network and sells it. Legal model is made in such a way that whoever joins the network stays in the network forever, basically, and cannot privatize the co-housing project, which is acquired within collective effort. What happens if the housing association fails or dissolves itself? This is also a good question, and also shows that this model also considers this opportunity or possibility. Uh, and I can tell you from things which I know that I know for a couple of examples that the housing associations didn't been capable to run the projects and they were dissolving themselves. So in this kind of case, a Mietshäuser Syndicate as a minority shareholder takes over the property, continues servicing the payment of the bank loan, and has a task to find a new group who will take over and populate housing project. Next slide, please. So if we would summarize effects of this model, we could say that one of the main effects is a permanent withdrawal of the property from the real estate market, even if the co-housing group dissolves itself. So all these properties within the projects affiliated with Mietshäuser Syndicate will never again be on the market. Model sets up a stable system with a built-in safety mechanism, which does not depend on individual or group characteristics and prevents any kind of misuse. I always like to quote it in old and somewhat funny German saying, trust is good, control is better. So this model doesn't rely really only on the trust, but puts quite a lot in the control.
Sounds
This
very
model
German.
prevents all forms.
Sorry? It sounds very German.
Yes, it is very much German. Yeah, and yeah, but it has something in it, I must say. It sounds weird, but when you put it in this type of context, makes sense. I'm not talking about the other forms of social control, of course. This model prevents all forms of privatization of the collectively acquired space. One of the characteristics is social innovation, because creates a collective form of property within capitalist framework. So we don't need to wait for a revolution to start thinking about it, but we do it already now. And effects of our work maybe will be a revolution at one point. Political empowerment of the tenants is really important, because tenants are not just passive consumers of the model, because model promotes self-organization and direct democracy, as well as the relevance of various soft skills, such as communication, non-violent communication, and whatever you want in this frame. And creates one positive vision of the society, which is quite important, especially in this kind of dystopian times. Please, next slide. I think we are almost finished. Yeah. A couple of words about the network. General Assembly of the network is the main decision-making body a year in various German cities. Last one was in Berlin, middle of April, and the next one will be in Lübeck. It's, I think, in 2 weeks or something. Usually meetings are not so dense or not so often happening, but for various reasons, this year is kind of exemption. Within the networks, there are various legal entities, association, LLC. Since a couple of years ago, there is also a foundation. There are a couple of other associations. So, meantime, and also here I was listing the development of the membership, so you can really see kind of rapid development, especially in the last 10 years, because like 2002, 10 years after network was established, there were only 12 members. 2005, already 32, and our co-housing project, which was established in 2005, was one of those, joining 1 year earlier. 1372, 113, and this 22 initiatives. Initiatives are co-housing projects yet to be in the process of working on establishment. This model is already 12 years ago. There is intense communication with similar groups. It doesn't work actually outside of the Germany. For very similar or same model established in Netherlands and Austria. And there are single related projects and developing networks in Spain, Czech Republic, and France. And I can add also, since December last year, there is a new association called Common Space Network, which is association with a pan-European or European-wide, let's say, scope of activities, which is having a focus, let's say, to push more and spread more this idea of co-housing and to support more concretely various initiatives and groups in different European countries. But I think you will hear more about Common Space Network from our friend Stefanos on Thursday or Wednesday or Thursday, if I'm not mistaken, on 6th, I guess, of June. Let's see what is the next slide. I think, well, yes, I think this is it. This is more like a teaser. This is the picture of my co-housing project, or picture one of the 3 houses with a web page under it. So this is more like a teaser for, who knows, maybe some other session one other time. So thanks a lot. I was talking. So we can maybe talk more now, discuss about details or questions. Or, yeah, thanks a lot.